To be humble, to be kind, it is a giving of the peace in your mind. To a stranger, to a friend, to give in such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. And to be bold, to be brave, it is a thinking that the heart can still be saved. And the darkness can come quick, the danger's in the anger and in the hanging on to it. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other, nothing more. And tell me what it is that you see. A world that's full of endless possibilities, and heroes don't look like they used to, they look like you do. Treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other.
We come this day called by war, by the suffering inflicted and endured when minds across borders fail to reason and compromise. We come this day called by loss, the innocent, whose death defy justification and comprehension, the combatants on all sides who have lost a sense of common humanity in their murderous deeds, to all whose lives end before their natural course, consumed in generational recycling of hatred and violence. We come this day called by hope, hope that we, in all lands, in some season, will finally surrender our swords for plowshares. And we come this day called by peace. May we hear its song, may we proclaim its promise. May our remembrance today renew our struggle we can never allow to rest. Welcome this morning to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. I'm Don Close, and I'll be joined by Karen Elliott presenting our service today, and we'll be joined by our beloved Lenore Ralston, who will present the Time for All Ages. So welcome all, and if you're new today, a special welcome, or if you're returning after an absence. But to all, know that you're welcome in the fullness of who you are. In thinking about a theme for this service today, I could not escape thinking about the war in the Middle East that has gripped our attention during the last 3 months. But how to address it? I wanted to somehow make a prayer for peace. But this is not easy for me since I don't know how to pray, and I'm not comfortable with praying per se. Nevertheless, let our presence here today together be our prayer for peace. And as we get started, I wanted to call your attention to our memory book, which is on the podium in the back of the sanctuary, where if you wish, you can write down a joy, a sorrow, a burden, a remembrance that you wish to share with the congregation later in the service during the time for centering. So feel free to go back as you wish during the early part of the service if you have something you want to write in the memory book. And there are candles there too that you can light. And now, please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening song, If Every Woman in the World, by Karen McKay. It is number 1026 in the Teal hymnal. And the words will be on the screen. Our song leaders will sing boldly, so please join in as soon as you feel comfortable.
Every woman in the world had her mind set on freedom. If every woman in the world dreamed a sweet dream of peace, if every woman of every nation, young and old, each generation, held her hands out in the name of love, every man of every nation, young and old, each generation, held his hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every leader in the world shared a vision of freedom, if every leader in the world shared a sweet dream of peace, if every leader of every nation worked for justice and liberation, holding hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every nation in the world set a true course for freedom, if every nation raised its children in a culture of peace, if all our sons and all our daughters reached in friendship across the waters, refusing to be enemies, there would be no more war.
What a wonderful song, even if we don't know it. We'll learn it. Good morning. I'm Karen Elliott. I'm your worship associate for today. As we get ready to light our chalice, we remind ourselves that our church occupies land in Huchiun, the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. May we have the humility and courage to do our part to restore what has been broken, and the wisdom to live into a new solidarity with Indigenous people and with the earth. Let us kindle our chalice flame with these words by Lindsay Bates. To face the world's shadows, a chalice of light. To face the world's coldness, a chalice of warmth. To face the world's terrors, a chalice of courage. To face the world's turmoil, a chalice of peace. May its glow fill our spirits, our hearts, and our lives. And now Lenore Ralston will do the time for all ages. Oh, first we have to do the covenant. I forgot. Please join me in saying our covenant. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to tell you a story of two brothers. This story is widely thought to be rooted in the Talmud, but it also has influences from Muslim, Hindu, Christian writings, and I would guess if we looked far and wide, we would find that the story of brotherly love appears in many different cultures. Once upon a time, in the land of Israel, there lived an old farmer. When he died, he left his land to his 2 sons. They divided the land evenly and built their houses on opposite sides of a green pasture. The younger brother soon married and had a family. The older brother did not marry, but lived alone. The brothers remained the best of friends and often helped each other plant and harvest crops. One year, at harvest time, the brothers helped each other to harvest their barley crop. They bundled the stalks of grain into large golden sheaves, counted them, and took them into their barns for storage. Later, they would take some of it to the market to sell. After a long day of work, the brothers usually slept very well. But on this night, the elder brother lay awake. He was thinking about the inequity that had crept into the way he and his brother divided the grain. It's not right, he thought, that I should reap as much grain as my brother. He has a family to feed, and I only have myself. He needs more barley to sell so that he can buy all the necessities for his family. Making up his mind to set things right, the older brother dressed in the dark and slipped out of his barn, to his barn, where he took many sheaves of the barley, gathered them up, and carried them across the field to his brother's barn. He laid them down and then went home. Feeling much better, he returned to his bed and he slept very well. The younger brother also slept badly. He too awoke and lay worrying. He thought of his brother. It's not right, he thought, that I should reap as much grain as my brother. I have a family to help me, to care for me in old age, while he works alone. So saying, he too arose and dressed and went to his barn. And he gathered up as many sheaves of barley as he could, took them across the field to his brother's barn, laid them down, and then came home and went to bed and slept very well. The next day, the 2 brothers each went to their barns. They looked, and they looked again at their grain. There was as much there as there had been the day before. As the 2 brothers worked again in their fields, they did not speak about this. They didn't talk about what had happened. The next night, each brother did the same thing. Again, the next day, both brothers stood in awe as they counted their sheaves of grain and realized nothing had happened. Again, they both kept their thoughts to themselves. On the 3rd night, both brothers rose late. The moon had gone down, and when they went to their barns, again they gathered as much grain as they could carry and headed out across the field. But in the dark, they almost collided. They stopped, they looked, and what they saw made them laugh. And then they just stood and they hugged one another for a long, long time. They promised one another they would always help each other, no matter what. Then they each knelt down right there in the field and thanked God for giving each one of them such a thoughtful and generous brother. They thought out loud and cherished the grace visited upon them. They spoke of the importance of looking beyond oneself to consider one another's family and circumstances, and to think even further about one's village and wider community. For the essence of life, of peace, is in seeing one another and appreciating one another's circumstances and holding one another's needs, one another's vulnerabilities with a gentle, compassionate heart. And so the brothers lived on in harmony, passing on their spirit of generosity and caring for one another to their children and their children's children, and giving generously to those communal things valued by their wider community. Thus, what we call the season of giving emerged.
Thank you. Well, today is my final Sunday as a worship associate after 4.5 years. I extended my term this long to get us through the pandemic and provide some continuity through our ministerial transitions. But now we have our wonderful new settled minister in place, and it's time for me to step down. I'm passing the lead worship associate torch to Don Close. Whom I could not respect more highly. It has been a wonderful experience to share my life's journey with you. Thank you for all your support and your words of encouragement through the years. Really, it's been really wonderful. It's been a privilege to serve in this way, to tackle the challenges that have arisen, and to feel myself grow. I urge any of you interested in becoming a worship associate to consider it deeply and to reach out to Reverend Marcus. I believe he will be putting a call out in the coming weeks, and I can tell you the rewards are tremendous. You can talk to any of the current worship associates as well as me to learn more. Being a member of this worship team with Reverend Marcus is a joy. And I just want to thank you for being you in the fullness of who you are. Now, a reading. Naomi Shihab Nye is an Arab-American poet and writer. She was born in 1952 in St. Louis. Did you hear all that? Okay. To a Palestinian refugee father, a journalist, and an American mother. During her high school years, she lived in Ramallah in Palestine, in the Old City in Jerusalem, and in San Antonio, Texas. It has been said of her that she is international in scope and internal in focus. She is a person who makes connections. I'd like to read an essay of hers titled Gate A4. Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my gate. I went there. An older woman in full Palestinian traditional embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing loudly. "Help," said the flight service person. "Talk to her. We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this." I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke to her haltingly. The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment. I said, "No, we're fine. We'll get you there. You'll get there, just later. Who is picking you up? Let's call him." We called her son, and I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother and would ride next to her. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic, and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took up about 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling about her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamoul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, out of her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free beverages. 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving us all apple juice, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green, furry leaves. Such an old country traveling tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in. The shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. Please remain seated now to join with us in verse 1 of our meditative song. Our song leaders will lead us. Filled with loving kindness. It's 10:31 in the teal hymnal, but the words will be right here. Just for verse 1.
I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole.
I invite you now to feel yourself in this time and place. To take a moment to rest more deeply into your seat. Feel your feet on the floor or the footrest. Take a deeper breath and let it out. Maybe another one. Perhaps lift your shoulders and let them go. Feel your connection to yourself, to the earth, to this room of your community. A poem now from the same wonderful writer, Naomi Shihab Nye, that came to her when traveling in Colombia in the 1970s. Just let yourself take in her words. Kindness by Naomi Shihab Nye. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go. So you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans, and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. Let us sit together a moment. And now let us sing verse 2 together.
May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole.
Each week, in this community of care and witness, we hold one another through the seasons of our lives and share the joys and sorrows among us. We have candles among us this morning, lights in the darkness at the end of the year. A couple of prayers. Prayers for the well-being of Alan Hosan Sanaki and his family, and wishes for the best for our relationship. For what I have named, and for all that yet remains in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts today. May every one of us here know that what we hold is held in the loving embrace of our community, and that what we hold is held as well by that deeper, mysterious, nameless love that, as Reverend Marcus says, travels on dark feet and dark wings and knows no boundaries and cannot and will not let us go. May it be so, and amen. And let us sing once more together, this time verse 3.
We be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be
Today, I am suffering from moral injury, and I suspect that we all are. December 31st, the last day of the year, we are at an ending with the threshold of a new beginning on the other side of tonight. Let us not go there yet. Let us dwell at the ending for a bit. Take stock, as if in a small way, it's Judgment Day. Taking stock, I can't get away from thoughts of war and peace. They are a storm cloud of anguish, foreboding, and betrayal. I have to admit to myself, this is nothing new. It has been woven into my life all along my journey. I was a kid in the years after World War II. In the late 1940s, my buddies and I played war countless times in the vacant lots of Albany, when Albany had vacant lots. We recreated the battles and shouted the racial slurs we learned from the movies. We were heroic and victorious. I don't think it ever occurred to us that our imagined enemies we played at hating and killing were sons, husbands, fathers, were human beings with individual life stories. I recall imagining that someday I would be a soldier and a hero. Somehow I evolved. Yes, boys do that. My evolution was enhanced by 16-year-old Kinya Taniguchi. He joined our advanced algebra class. The math was challenging to all of us, but not to Kinya. He had no problem with it. But he knew no English and was clueless about our teenage culture. His smile was contagious, his laugh explosive. He was humble, eager to learn, and captured our teenage hearts. We took him under our wing and helped him learn English. Kinya and I became very good friends. We were equal in size, and we loved to wrestle, sometimes to exhaustion. Soon I realized that had we been born 20 or so years earlier, Kinya and I would have been mortal enemies, opposing soldiers in World War II, hunting each other in some jungle to kill or be killed. Kinya and I would not have been wrestling playfully on the gym mat. I knew then I would never join or be a part of the U.S. military. It felt just too utterly absurd. 2 years later, I resolved to become a conscientious objector. When I learned about U.S. and Soviet policies to massively retaliate against each other with hydrogen bombs, what purpose could possibly justify, I asked myself, the annihilation of millions of men, women, and children on whatever side of the globe fate had placed them? Or risk the death of civilization as we know it? Much to my surprise, when I stood before the serious men of the draft board and made my argument, they granted me conscientious objector status, even though I was not from a pacifist church and did not claim that God had spoken directly to me. My generation's moral compass concerning war was tested by the military draft and Vietnam. Since then, we have not had a shortage of terrible wars that the United States has had a hand in, directly or indirectly. Our invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq sort of flew under the radar of widespread domestic moral outrage. But they've had a cumulative assault on my sense of right and wrong. The war between the Israeli government and Hamas, however, has impacted us in a special way. In the last 3 months, our country's moral intuitions about war have been acutely challenged. I will speak here from my own experience, of course, and maybe committing the fallacy of generalizing from my own case. But I think what I'll say will resonate with many of you. I'm suffering from moral injury. Moral injury is done to someone when a person perpetuates, witnesses, or fails to prevent acts that transgress one's own deeply held moral beliefs, values, or ethical codes of conduct. How does moral injury feel? Therapists treating moral injury in their clients describe guilt, shame, anger, sadness, anxiety, disgust, disbelief, feelings of betrayal, all in various combinations and manifestations. We have been traumatized by the monstrous, unspeakable crimes of October 7th. And we have been traumatized by the scale and brutality of the Israeli response that has followed. Drawing equivalences here would be meaningless. But in both cases, there has been the massive, indiscriminate, murderous violence against innocent, non-combatant men, women, and children. This is the very definition of war crimes, crimes against humanity. Our moral compasses are sent spinning. Yes, I'm angry, and I'm sad. Our pain runs more deeply, though. Our loyalties run in conflicting directions and at cross purposes. We are committed to a surviving and thriving Israel. And we are committed to the Palestinian people's right to living with dignity and in peace in their own homeland, free from oppression, to determine their own future. A safe and secure Israel is a moral imperative. A free and safe Palestine is also a moral imperative. I feel deep sympathy with Israel, and also betrayed and offended by its massive attacks against Palestinian people. The way one feels offended and betrayed by a close friend who commits a despicable act. In a similar way, Hamas's vicious attack on October 7th, or for that matter, whenever they fire rockets at Israel, is a profound outrage. This can only set back a positive future for the Palestinian people for generations. This latest, most dreadful round of war in Gaza brings us, once again, to reassess our convictions about war, about how it can ever be justified. To begin with, we followed the path of rationalization that has preceded every war. At the outset, we thought that Israel surely was justified in striking back at Hamas to neutralize and disarm and eliminate it as a military threat. This was a worthy goal toward which military force could be used. Surely Hamas had completely lost its legitimacy as a governing body. I saluted our president when he stood in solidarity with Israel, and also when he cautioned against giving in to the emotions of horror and rage and abandoning the laws of war. I was glad to hear President Biden counsel Israel about the unintended consequences of our own use of military force. He cautioned, don't make the tragic missteps that the United States has made in our recent history. But then, very soon, we became dismayed. And our questioning became louder, echoed by people around the world and in the chambers of the United Nations. How could Israel's military means of indiscriminate bombing ever be justified by its worthy ends? Yes, I feel sad, and I feel disgust. You know the familiar saying, the ends don't justify the means. But in warfare, the ends are what do justify the means. However, there comes a limit to the ends justifying the means. This is what the laws of just war are all about. The laws of war are broken when innocent civilians, non-combatants, who are not engaged in any harmful behavior, are targeted and killed. I winced when I heard our leaders pleading with the Israeli government. Too many Palestinian children are being killed, they said. How many is too many? 1,000? 2,000? It doesn't matter who was hiding behind them. After October 7th, the indiscriminate killing of Palestinian civilians and thousands of children could not have been committed unknowingly. This has been profoundly traumatizing and deeply offensive to a bedrock moral intuition shared by ordinary people all around the world and has caused moral injury to all. You could ask, what war in our living memory has not become total in the sense of causing far more civilian innocent deaths than deaths of enemy combatants? Even in World War II, felt by many to be a just war against the Nazi regime and Japanese aggression across the Far East, our military forces succumbed to aerial slaughtering of civilian populations in Germany and Japan. Even before Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yes, I feel anger and I feel dismay. There's no doubt in my mind that both Israel and Hamas are culpable for every civilian death in Gaza. Comparing degrees of guilt would be a meaningless exercise. Hamas could stop the carnage immediately by laying down their arms and ceasing hostilities. But the fact that they have not done this does not give a moral green light to the Israeli military, which could choose to stop dropping bombs on Palestinian civilians. These bombs include the 2,000-pound bombs that we, citizens of a representative democracy, have given and are giving them. So I am angry, I feel betrayed, I feel deeply sad. Is there any hope for a resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the world's most intractable conflict? If there is, it will not be through war. The war in Gaza will most likely perpetuate the cycle of violence and guarantee hatred and dehumanization of one side by the other for 100 years of generations to come. It is a cliche, but true. War is not the answer. Rather, we need an about-face. First and foremost, practicing respect for human rights and taking the UN Declaration of Human Rights as the first principles for relations between nations and all peoples. These principles, it is worth noting, have a close concordance with our own UU 7 principles. Is there any hope? Yes, I do feel hope is possible, but only if we actively build it. Today, we draw 2023 to a close. It is appropriate that we should take stock. The year is ending with the horrendous tragedy of the Israeli-Hamas war and the ongoing humanitarian crisis for the citizens of Gaza, which gets worse every day. Against the temptation to despair, I want to reach out for hope, to somehow make a prayer for peace. Difficult for me, as I said, I don't know how to pray. Not even very comfortable with it. How to build hope. War is fueled by our species' propensity to see the other as less than, as categorically different from us. We must actively push back and redeem the other as a person fundamentally just like us, just like me, who wants, as we do, as I do, to live with dignity, respect, and peace. Perhaps the hope we are seeking can be found in what Kenya and I came to realize in our growing friendship at Albany High School. Two individuals, Kenya and I, reared in the aftermath of a grotesque war between mortal enemies, discovered our common humanity. It dissolved the narrative that we were somehow supposed to hate each other, to regard each other as less than fully human. Today I can see hope and begin to heal my sense of moral injury, I hope. In a meditation practice I learned several years ago, it is called compassion cultivation training. It grew out of a collaboration between neuroscientists at Stanford and the Dalai Lama, and was influenced by Tibetan Buddhist traditions. This is a meditation practice that cultivates and expands the natural kernel of compassion within each of us. In one of the exercises, we embrace the following affirmation toward another person, an other, even one we find to be difficult or even an enemy. The affirmation goes like this: just like me, this person has ups and downs in his or her life, has goals and dreams, is an object of deep concern to someone. He or she is a child to someone, a parent or spouse or friend to someone. Just like me, he or she knows what pain, sadness, anger, and fear feel like. He or she wants to love and to be loved and to be appreciated. May we come sooner than later to hear these voices across the lands of Israel and Palestine. From Palestine, dear Israeli neighbor, just like me, may you be free from suffering. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you know peace and joy. May you live with ease. And from Israel, dear Palestinian neighbor, just like me, may you be free from suffering. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you know peace and joy. May you live with ease. May this be our prayer for peace. May it be so.
We invite you now into the spiritual practice of generosity. As usual, instead of passing the plate, you can give electronically by scanning the QR code at the back of your badge, or you can put a cash or check donation into the donation envelope that you'll find in the back of the pew in front of you. Write your name on it, mark offering plate or pledge, and then put it into the donation box beside the fountain in the atrium as you leave the service. Each week, half of the offering plate is shared with a nonprofit Good Neighbor organization recommended by our Social Justice Council. The Good Neighbor for this month is the Safe Return Program. The Safe Return Program is invested in building a base of power at the civic, social, and economic levels for formerly incarcerated persons across the state of California, addressing the root causes of poverty and the impact that the criminal justice system has had on Black people and people of color. Their vision as an organization is to empower and increase the visibility of all those who have been impacted by the criminal legal system as a whole. Thank you so much for practicing generosity at UUCB and with our good neighbors. Offerings of any amount are always accepted with gratitude.
Da pacem Domine, da pacem Domine, in diebus nostris. When will the fighting cease? When will we live in peace? When our love breaks boundaries? When will the fighting cease? When will we live in peace? When our love breaks boundaries? When will the fighting cease? When will we live in peace? When our love breaks boundaries?
Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of joy and service. And now, our announcements. If you're new to our church and you'd like to learn more about how to get connected, please speak with any of our greeters at the welcome table in the atrium after the service. And to find out more about what's happening in the life of our community, you can always check the News tab on the homepage of our website, uucb.org, where you'll find our weekly newsletter, The Week Ahead, which includes contact information, activities, announcements. This week, I want to lift up a couple of things. On Sunday, January 14th, in 2 weeks, at 1 p.m. after the social hour, please join us for the first ever public screening of the film Resurrecting Love, The Cemetery That Can Heal a Nation, an independent narrative documentary film about struggle, race, history, and reconciliation. The screening is sponsored by the Literature, Film, Dance, and Music contingent of the Social Justice Council. Please RSVP on our website, uucb.org. And just to let you know that the church office will be closed tomorrow, New Year's Day, And because of the New Year's holiday, please check the church calendar on our website for updated information about our weekly events, since things could change. Now, let's rise once more in body or spirit in singing our closing song, "We Are a Gentle, Angry People." It's in the gray hymnal, number 170, and on the screen.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
We came together today, called by war. Let us never accept this tragedy as inevitable or normal. We came together, called by loss. Let our grief energize our efforts to reduce the causes of war. We came today, called by hope. When it appears lost, let us rebuild it again and again by resolute acts of compassion and kindness. We came today called by peace. May we hear its song, may we proclaim its promise, and by being peacemakers, let us build the peace we long for. Go in peace, make peace, be at peace.